If I told you that a 17th century magic love potion, a highly specific modern clinical treatment for UV radiation damage, and a potential inhibitor for cancer cell growth all rely on the exact same active botanical ingredient.
Most people would probably think you were joking.
Right. And what if I told you that this ingredient is probably growing in a terracotta pot on your front porch right now? Would you believe me?
Honestly, I mean, most people wouldn't. We have this tendency to compartmentalize the natural world.
Yeah, for sure.
We put, pretty garden flowers in one mental box and then serious clinical medicine in a completely different, sterile, white-walled box.
And that mental wall is exactly what we are tearing down in today's deep dive. Because our mission today is to unpack a truly fascinating set of translated Tamil medicinal scripts and botanical texts.
It's an incredible collection of sources.
It really is. We are exploring a plant that forces you to realize the landscaping outside your window is actually, a dormant ancient apothecary. We're talking about Calendula officinalis.
Which is a plant of many names and, quite frankly, many lives.
Yeah, globally you almost certainly know it as pot marigold. But in the regional Tamil texts we're analyzing today, it carries these beautifully descriptive names. Thuluka Samanthi, Sindhumali, or Maruthuva Savanthi.
I love the history behind those names.
Right, and just to make sure we're all picturing the exact same thing according to the botanical sources, this is an annual herb. It grows to about 60 centimeters, so roughly 2 feet tall.
Right, with those distinct, slightly hairy green leaves.
Exactly, and it sports these incredibly vibrant orange or yellow flowers.
It's a really unassuming physical profile. If you walk past it, you just see a pop of cheerful color. You don't immediately see a botanical powerhouse that serves as a bridge between intuitive, ancient folk healing and rigorous modern biochemistry.
Yeah, even its name hints at something a bit more complex than just a garden decoration. The etymology is super interesting. Calendula comes from Latin, meaning little calendar or little clock.
Which tracks perfectly with how the flowers open and close with the sun.
Yeah. It also earned the name Marigold in honor of the Virgin Mary, showing just how deeply revered it was culturally. Okay, let's unpack this. How did a humble little herb native to the Mediterranean end up essentially conquering the globe and landing in medicinal texts from Europe to South Asia?
Well, it really comes down to utility. I mean, ancient practitioners weren't looking at biochemistry through microscopes. They were observing physiological results.
It's trial and error.
Exactly. They realized very early on that calendula had a remarkable broad-spectrum ability to interact with the human body and provide tangible relief across a wildly diverse set of ailments.
And the texts we're looking at definitely back that up. They list a medicinal resume for the ancient world that includes treating headaches, red eyes, fevers, and even toothaches.
It's quite the list.
It is. But I have to admit, my absolute favorite detail from these historical texts, like the one that completely stopped me in my tracks, is a highly specific 17th century magic ritual.
Ah, yes. The romantic folklore. It's an absolute classic in botanical history.
It's so good. According to the source, unmarried women who had multiple suitors, so women who were basically overwhelmed with options, would use calendula to help them choose the right partner.
Right.
They would create an ointment by mixing calendula, marjoram, thyme, and wormwood into a base of honey and white wine. They would then apply this sticky mixture to themselves, genuinely believing it would magically reveal their perfect match.
It's just an incredible snapshot of how botanical history is constantly interwoven with human psychology, social rituals, and, a bit of desperation.
Oh, totally. But here's where I want to push back. Because it is so easy for us in the 21st century to read about an ancient Tinder algorithm made of wormwood and wine, roll our eyes, and just dismiss it as pure superstition.
Sure.
But were they actually onto something with these topical applications, even if they completely misunderstood the mechanism?
Well, if we connect this to the bigger picture, we really have to separate the assumed magic from the material chemistry. Did the ointment magically reveal a soulmate? Obviously not. But the physical act of applying those specific ingredients to the skin, that was profoundly astute biochemistry happening by accident.
Astute how? Because smearing honey and wine on your face sounds like a recipe for a massive breakout, not a glowing complexion.
You'd think so, but let's break down the mechanics of what was actually in that bowl. Ancient people intuitively knew to infuse calendula petals in water or oil to treat severe skin problems, heal scars, and even treat eye infections.
Wow, even for eyes.
Yeah, they didn't know the molecular reasons why it worked, they just saw tissue regenerating. So in this love potion, you have calendula, which promotes tissue repair. Then you add honey.
Right.
Honey isn't just sticky. It has massive osmotic pressure that dehydrates and kills bacteria. It's a documented antibacterial agent. Then you add white wine.
Let me guess, the alcohol acts as a solvent.
Exactly. The alcohol extracts the fat-soluble bioactive compounds from the calendula and the thyme, while also acting as a mild astringent to tighten the pores. Yeah, when you combine all of that, you don't have a magic spell. You have a highly effective, skin-soothing, complexion-clearing, antibacterial face mask.
Okay, so the woman might not have magically seen her future husband, but her skin probably looked absolutely flawless the next day.
Precisely. They were benefiting from the chemistry while crediting the magic. And you actually see this intuition sharpen over time. By the 17th century, the famous herbalist Nicholas Culpeper noted in his writings that calendula was good for the heart.
Which is a huge leap. I mean, we're moving from a topical skin treatment to an internal organ intervention.
It is a massive conceptual leap. Culpeper's observation shows that early practitioners were starting to recognize that calendula possessed deeper systemic physiological benefits.
Interesting.
It wasn't just for soothing a scraped knee anymore, it was interacting with the internal machinery of the body.
So if these ancient healers were seeing systemic internal benefits, what happens when we strip away the folklore, take this plant into a modern laboratory, and actually look at the mechanics? How does it hold up?
It doesn't just hold up, it excels. Modern research has completely mapped out the biochemistry that validates those ancient practices.
And what's actually doing the heavy lifting?
It all comes down to a dense concentration of bioactive compounds, specifically flavonoids, triterpenoids, and essential oils.
And these compounds are what give it that trifecta of properties mentioned in the text, like the anti-inflammatory, antifungal, and antimicrobial powers.
Exactly. But it's important to understand how they do it. When our ancestors mashed up calendula petals and put them on an infected wound, they weren't just creating a physical barrier.
Right.
The antimicrobial compounds in the plant actively disrupt the cellular walls of bacteria and fungi, neutralizing the infection.
But what about the anti-inflammatory side? Because usually if you put something on a wound that kills bacteria, like rubbing alcohol, it inflames the tissue and burns like crazy.
Yeah, and that's the brilliance of this plant's specific chemical makeup. While one set of compounds is attacking the bacteria, the flavonoids are simultaneously interacting with the body's immune response. Yeah, they essentially inhibit the enzymes that cause swelling and redness. They tell the localized immune system to turn down the heat, so it kills the invader while actively soothing the host tissue.
That is wild. It's a simultaneous attack and defend mechanism.
Precisely.
But the sources highlight another ancient use that I found even more fascinating, and it goes back to that internal systemic use Culpeper hinted at.
Okay, yeah.
The texts talk about using calendula to stimulate the muscles of the digestive tract to relieve stomach cramps and constipation. I mean, I understand soothing skin, but how does a flower stop a muscle spasm in your gut?
Well, it's not coating the stomach like a modern pink bismuth liquid. The bioactive compounds are actually interacting with the smooth muscle tissue itself.
Like a muscle relaxant.
Conceptually, yes. The compounds interact with the receptors in the digestive tract, essentially interrupting the chemical signals that cause the smooth muscles to violently contract or spasm.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it modulates the muscle activity, which relieves the cramping, while its anti-inflammatory properties soothe the irritated intestinal lining.
So if these bioactive compounds are powerful enough to regenerate cell tissue on a wound and physically block spasm signals in the gut, how is modern 21st century medicine harnessing this? Because it seems like the cosmetic and pharmaceutical industries would be all over this.
Oh, they are heavily invested, and the texts we are analyzing highlight some truly cutting-edge applications.
Let's talk about the UV protection, because that stood out to me.
Sure.
The sources say essential oils derived from calendula are being used in creams that protect the skin from UV radiation and prevent the natural pigmentation loss that happens from sun damage.
Yeah.
But how is that different from me just, putting on standard SPF 50 zinc oxide?
A standard physical sunblock like zinc oxide works by sitting on the surface of your skin and literally bouncing the UV rays away. It's a physical shield.
Mm.
Calendula is doing something fundamentally different on a molecular level.
Okay, I'll listen.
When UV radiation hits unprotected skin, it breaks molecular bonds and creates what we call free radicals, unstable molecules that bounce around, destroying cellular DNA and breaking down melanin.
And that's what causes that loss of pigmentation.
Exactly. But the essential oils in calendula are packed with potent antioxidants. These antioxidants actively scavenge those free radicals. They donate an electron to stabilize them, effectively halting the chain reaction of cellular destruction.
So it's not just blocking the sun. It's deploying a chemical cleanup crew to stop the radiation damage in real time.
Precisely. It is cellular-level intervention. And we see similar targeted botanical intervention in the text's notes on women's health.
Right.
Calendula extract is now utilized as a clinical alternative treatment for issues like leukorrhea, vaginal itching, and bacterial odors.
Which makes sense based on the antimicrobial and antifungal properties we talked about earlier.
Right, but the mechanism is why it's so valuable. Harsh synthetic treatments often wipe out the entire microbiome. They kill the bad bacteria, but they also nuke the good flora, leaving the body vulnerable to a rebound infection.
Ugh, yeah.
Calendula's bioactives are highly effective against specific fungal overgrowths, like candida, but they are gentle enough not to completely obliterate the local healthy microbiome. It restores balance rather than just carpet bombing the area.
But of all the modern applications in these texts, the one that requires the biggest double take is the research regarding the big C cancer. Now, I know we need to tread very carefully here.
We do. We have to navigate this with extreme caution and scientific rigor. But the early stage research highlighted in the texts is undeniably fascinating.
What exactly is happening in these lab settings? Because saying it is inhibiting the growth of cancer cells is a massive phrase.
It is. What researchers are observing in cellular models, and again, the crucial caveat is that these are in vitro cellular models, meaning in a petri dish. Not vast human trials, but what they are observing is that specific compounds extracted from calendula can interrupt the replication cycle of certain rogue cells.
So it doesn't necessarily cure the cancer, but it stops the cells from dividing and multiplying.
In these early models, yes. The compounds appear to interfere with the signaling pathways that tell the cancer cells to proliferate.
Wow.
It's early days, but the fact that a compound from a garden marigold is showing active, targeted inhibition of rogue cell growth is a testament to the immense, largely untapped potential of botanical chemistry.
Okay, so with all these incredible individual powers, from stopping cell division to scavenging free radicals, it makes me wonder about mixing it. Wait, if calendula is already this powerhouse antimicrobial, why mix it with other plants?
Right.
Like at that ancient love potion they threw in thyme and wormwood, and modern texts talk about combining it with arnica or aloe. Doesn't mixing it just dilute the active compounds?
What's fascinating here is that you aren't diluting the compounds, you are orchestrating them. This is the concept of botanical synergy.
Synergy. Okay, explain the mechanics of that, because honestly, it usually just sounds like a corporate buzzword.
Yeah, fair enough. In pharmacology, synergy means the combined effect of the botanicals is exponentially greater than the sum of their individual parts. Let's use an analogy. Imagine a severe wound as a chaotic construction site.
Okay, I'm the foreman. What's happening?
Calendula is your site clearance crew and your security. It comes in, kills the bacterial invaders, and clears away the inflammatory debris. But clearing the site doesn't build the new building.
Right.
That's where a product mentioned in the text, Simulacin Arnica Plus Spray, comes in. It combines calendula with arnica, St. John's wort, and comfrey.
So what are those other plants doing on the construction site?
Arnica acts as your logistics manager. It aggressively stimulates localized blood flow, bringing fresh oxygen and building materials to the site while reducing bruising.
Okay.
St. John's wort specifically targets and soothes the damaged nerve endings, turning off the pain alarms. And comfrey contains allantoin, a compound that aggressively stimulates cellular regeneration.
So they aren't stepping on each other's toes. They're all running completely different biological mechanisms simultaneously.
Exactly. You get incredibly rapid wound healing because you are hitting the problem from 4 different physiological angles at once.
The sources also highlight a much simpler synergy that sounds incredibly potent. Calendula mixed with aloe vera.
Oh, yes.
The text specifically notes this as a powerhouse for postpartum care. healing episiotomy wounds, which are the tears that can occur during childbirth, and for severe baby diaper rash.
It's a classic combination, and again, the mechanics make perfect sense. Aloe vera provides a deeply cooling, hydrating, viscous gel. It acts as the perfect delivery vehicle.
Yeah, because it stays in place.
Yeah. It coats the highly sensitive, damaged tissue, providing immediate physical relief while holding the heavy-duty antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory compounds of the calendula directly against the wound so they can absorb slowly.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, because I need to hit the brakes. We have just spent a solid chunk of time detailing how this plant alters cell division, stops muscle spasms, and fights off fungal infections. So if these bioactive compounds are that powerful, what happens when that exact same chemical payload hits a body that doesn't need it or gets way too much of it?
That is the vital question. Botany demands respect. Natural does not automatically mean harmless. Highly active chemistry is highly active chemistry, regardless of whether it comes from a lab or a leaf.
So let's talk preparation and risks. If someone has this growing in their yard, they aren't just like eating the whole plant, right?
No. The texts are very clear. Only the flowers and the leaves are used medicinally. You do not use the stems or the roots.
Why just the flowers and leaves?
That is where the specific beneficial bioactive compounds are concentrated. The roots of many plants can contain entirely different, sometimes toxic alkaloids as a defense mechanism against soil pests.
Good to know. And the sources mention brewing dried petals for herbal tea or infusing them in a carrier oil like coconut oil for skin ointments. But let's get into the warnings. What happens if someone drinks, say, a gallon of calendula tea?
If you overconsume it internally, the central nervous system depression can be significant. It causes severe drowsiness, and more alarmingly, it can lead to slowed breathing.
Which is terrifying. And topically.
While it heals many, for certain individuals, applying it can trigger allergic contact dermatitis. Your immune system mistakes the compounds for a threat and initiates a severe inflammatory response.
Which brings us to the allergy warning in the texts. If you are allergic to plants in the Asteraceae or Compositae family, you need to steer clear.
Yes. That family includes daisies, chrysanthemums, and ragweed. If a daisy makes you break out, calendula will likely do the same.
But there is one more major contraindication in the sources that we absolutely have to highlight, and it has to do with hormones.
This is perhaps the most critical warning. Pregnant women and breastfeeding mothers must absolutely avoid calendula unless under strict, direct medical supervision.
How exactly does it alter hormones? Because the text says it can induce menstruation.
It possesses what are known as emmenagogue properties. The specific bioactive compounds stimulate blood flow in the pelvic area and can actually provoke uterine contractions.
Which is exactly what you do not want during a pregnancy.
Precisely. When a botanical compound is potent enough to actively alter your physiological baseline and trigger a biological process like menstruation, you have to treat it with the exact same caution and respect you would give a synthetic prescription medication.
Highly active chemistry. I think that is the perfect phrase to summarize this entire deep dive.
It truly is.
We started by looking at a simple, bright orange flower, Calendula officinalis, the pot marigold. And we unpacked a centuries-long journey. We traced it from ancient Tamil texts and 17th century folklore all the way to modern clinical laboratories where it's being deployed to scavenge UV free radicals, balance the gut microbiome, orchestrate rapid wound healing, and even be researched as a disruptor of cancer cell replication.
It completely shatters that mental wall between the garden and the pharmacy.
It really does. So what does this all mean? I think it means that the natural world thriving in our backyards is holding potent, highly sophisticated chemistry. And that chemistry demands both our profound awe and our absolute unyielding respect regarding dosage and safety. You can't just brush it off as landscaping.
No, you can't. And this raises an important question, something I want to leave you with to mull over.
Lay it on us.
Think back to the very beginning of our conversation, that 17th century love potion. Calendula, marjoram, thyme, and wormwood mixed into honey and white wine.
Right. The desperate ancient Tinder algorithm.
Exactly. We laughed at the supposed magic. But then we broke down the science. We now know calendula repairs tissue. We know honey destroys bacteria through osmotic pressure. We know the alcohol in the wine extracts the botanicals and acts as an astringent.
Right.
When you layer those precise mechanisms together, you aren't looking at a magical spell. You are looking at a highly effective, scientifically sound, perfectly balanced pharmaceutical skincare synergy that just happened to be wearing a folklore costume.
Oh, wow. I see where you're going with that.
If a supposedly ridiculous